Hi, this is Grishma from CSCA section from Maashankara Institute of Technology. Today my Tech Talk topic is exception handling. Exception means it is a runtime problem. Exception handling the runtime. These are two types, checked and unchecked. It means compiler with check these exceptions at compile time to check the compiler at runtime. Examples for checked acceptance: class not found, file not found, array index out of found, network not found. Example for unchecked acceptance: arithmetic acceptance, null point acceptance, array store acceptance, class cast acceptance, and thread state acceptance. So, what is the exception handling in Java? Exception handling in Java is one of the effective means to handle the runtime errors so that the regular flow of the application can be preserved. Java exception handling is a mechanism to handle the runtime errors such as class not found exception, IO exception, SQL exception, and remote exceptions, etc. What are the types of exception handling in Java? There are mainly two types of exceptions in Java. These are checked exception and unchecked exceptions. What is the meaning of exception handling? In computing and computer programming, exception handling is the process of responding to the occurrence of exceptions. Anomalous or exceptional conditions requiring special processing during the execution of a program. This is the Java exception handling example. We use public class Java exception example, public static void main string array, try code that may raise exception, integer data equal to 100 not 0, catch arithmetic exception, system out println, read code of the program, system.out.println rest of the code. This is the example of Java exception handling. What is the exception in Java? For example, in Java it is possible to define two categories of exceptions and errors. JVM exceptions, these are exceptions. Errors that are exclusively or logically thrown by the JVM. Examples: null pointer exception, array index out of bounds exception, and class cast exception. Types of exceptions in Java. In Java, exception is an event that occurs during the execution of a program and describes the normal flow of the program's instructions. Bugs or errors that we don't want and restrict our program's normal execution of a code are referred to as exceptions. In this section, we will focus on the types of exceptions in Java and the difference between the two. Exceptions can be categorized into two ways. Built-in exceptions. In built-in exceptions, there are two categories: checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions are both are under built-in exceptions, and user-defined exceptions. So types of exceptions are user-defined exceptions and built-in exceptions. In built-in exceptions, there are divided into two types: checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. In checked exceptions, class not found exception, interrupted exception, IO exception, initialization exceptions, SQL exception, and file not found exceptions. In unchecked exceptions, arithmetic exception, class cast exception, null pointer exception, array index out of bound exceptions, array store exception, and illegal thread state exceptions. These are the types of exceptions. Exceptions that are already available in Java libraries are referred to as built-in exception. These exceptions are able to define the errors situation so that we can understand the reason of getting this error. It can be categorized into two broad categories, that is checked exceptions and unchecked exceptions. There are two parts in Java exceptions. First one, checked exceptions, and the second one is unchecked exceptions. So checked expressions are called as component expression because these exceptions are checked at compile time. While compiling, compiler ensures whether the programmer handles the exceptions or not. So the programmer should have to handle the exceptions, otherwise the system has shown a compilation error. Checked exceptions example in Java is this is the example for a checked exception. So in the above code we are trying to read the hello.text file and display its data or content on the screen. There are basically two ways through which we can solve these errors. First way is the exceptions occur in the main method, so we can get rid from these compilation errors by declaring the exceptions in the main method. Using the throws, we only declare the IO exceptions, not file not found exception, because of the child parent relationship. So the IO exceptions class is the parent class of file not found exception, so this exception will automatically cover by IO exception. So we will declare the exception in the following way. So in this way we can declaring class extensions, open parenthesis, public static void main string array throws. We use the throws and IO exception and close parenthesis. So if we compile and run the code, the errors will be disappeared and we will see the data of the file. So this is the data of the file. So in second way, we can also handle these exceptions using try catch. However, the way which we have used above, this is not correct. So we have to give meaningful messages for each exceptions type. So by doing that, it would be easy to understand and error. So we will use the try catch block in the following way. So this is the example. So if we see a proper error message, file not found on the console, because there is no such file in that location. So this is the example for the errors without errors. And next one is unchecked exceptions. So the unchecked exceptions are just opposite to the checked exceptions. So the compiler will not check these exceptions at compile time. So in simple words, if a program throws an unchecked exception and even if we did not handle or declare it, so the program would not give a compilation error. Usually it occurs when the user provides bad data during the interaction with the program. So this is the example for unchecked exception. Class checked exception 1, public static void main. So open parenthesis, integer number, for example 10 to 60, system.out.println, so number 7, so close parenthesis. User defined exceptions. In Java we already have some built-in exception classes like array index outbounds exception, null pointer exception and arithmetic exceptions. These exceptions are restricted to trigger on some predefined conditions. In Java, we can write our own exception class by extends the exception class. We can throw our own exceptions on a particular conditions using the through keyword. For creating a user-defined exception, we should have basic knowledge of the try-catch block and throw keyword. This is the example for user-defined exceptions in Java. So there is a difference for checked exception and unchecked exception. So in checked exceptions, these exceptions are checked at compile time. These exceptions are handled at compile time too. So these exceptions are just opposite to the checked exceptions. These exceptions are not checked and handled at compile time. These exceptions are direct subclasses of exception but not extended from the runtime exceptions. But unchecked exceptions are direct subclasses of the runtime exception classes. So the code gives a compilation error in the case when a method throws a checked exceptions, the compiler is not able to handle the exception on its own. So in unchecked exception, the code compiles without any error because the exceptions escapes the notice of the compiler. These exceptions are the results of the user created errors in the programming logic language. So these exceptions mostly occur when the probability of the failure is too high. These exceptions occur mostly due to the programming mistakes. Common checked exceptions includes IO exceptions, data access exceptions, and interrupted exceptions, etc. Common unchecked exceptions includes arithmetic exceptions, invalid class exceptions, null pointer exceptions, etc. In unchecked exceptions, these are propagated using the throw keyword. So these are automatically propagated. In checked, it is required to provide the try catch and try finally block to handle the checked exceptions. In the case of unchecked exceptions, it's not a mandatory. Thank you.